Okay, Barry, it doesn't feel like it, but I last spoke to you on radio in March of last year. Before we talk about the general election, I believe there is some positive news in Ireland and I think the UK since our last interview on the fight or quest to overcome problem gambling, isn't there?
Yeah, well, there's a few things in the UK. I mean, the UK Gambling Commission recently announced that they're going to ban credit card gambling, I think in April of this year. So that's a very positive move because, I mean, a huge amount of the people that would contact us or that would use our counselling service get into very, very serious debt, gambling with money that they don't have. So it could be money that they're borrowing to gamble, taking out loans, or the most common one would be credit cards because it's easier to get a credit card than, say, take out a loan. But of course, the interest rates on credit cards are very high as well. So I think a couple of parties, Fianna Fáil, I think Labour as well, in their manifestos here for the general election have said that they would ban credit card gambling. So that would be a move in the right direction. Also, there was a reversal recently in the UK around FA Cup games, which some of the gambling operators had got exclusive live streaming rights to. So a person would have had to set up an account with one of these gambling websites and bet money on the match that they wanted to watch in order to see it. There was furore over it in the UK. It was brought up in the House of Commons, and within about a week, the UK gambling operators reversed that and gave the rights back to BBC and ITV and other broadcasters. So there's some positive things happening there. And also in Ireland, we saw that the FAI have broken their ties with their gambling sponsor, SportPesa, even before the deal was up. They had a 2-year deal with them, so that's positive here as well.
Does that mean in Ireland that any national teams or whatever are not going to be sponsored by gambling companies anymore, or is it just a limited kind of a thing, you know?
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, when John Delaney is quoted as having saying when they signed the SportPesa deal that this would be the last betting partnership that they do. And I think he sensed the change in public opinion around that. Obviously, John Delaney is gone, so we don't know if this is kind of a long-term plan, like what the GAA have done, where they said absolutely no way will they have gambling sponsorship.
It's unbelievable talking with the UK again. The amount of advertising in the English Premier Soccer League, like of gambling teams. I think something like half of the soccer teams have gambling sponsors. So, and the influence that English soccer has, the support English soccer has in Ireland is huge. And if it was ended in the UK, the connection between gambling and the English FA would be brilliant, you know, and in Ireland as well, you know. Okay, to talk about the general election, Barry, what specifically are you as in Problem Gambling Ireland calling on the parties to commit to in the general election with the aim of them adopting as policy in the next government and all?
Yeah, well, with the main one and the one that we've been pushing for since we founded this organisation about 4 years ago is to create a gambling regulator. We've no regulation of gambling apart from the National Lottery in Ireland, so it's a complete Wild West sector naturally when it's unregulated and there's so much money at stake. So that's the first one, that the government coming in would create an Office of Gambling Regulator before the end of 2020. I think some of the parties have already kind of proposed that in their manifesto, so that's positive. The other one would be to create a social fund, which would be a mandatory levy on gambling operators' turnover to fund addiction services, gambling addiction services, so to fund treatment, harm prevention and education services and research around it. Now that's already been proposed in Fine Gael's 2013 Gambling Control Bill, so this isn't our idea. This is something that Fine Gael have proposed themselves. Fianna Fáil, when they put out their own Gambling Control Bill, also spoke about this type of social fund. So we just want to see that actioned as well before the end of this year. And then the final one, which is extremely important, is that the government finally acknowledges problem gambling and gambling-related harm are a public health issue. At the moment, it falls under the Department of Justice because it's all around the regulation and the legislation around gambling. but it is a serious public health issue, so it needs to come under the Department of Health and be treated as a public health issue. That would be the main three.
And I was delighted to see Lisa Chambers from Fianna Fáil had strong words to say last week. I think she was speaking the truth. She said that being addicted to gambling is an illness, she said. And you have all these gambling companies profiteering from people who have an illness. You agree with that, what she said, do you?
Yeah, a substantial percentage of gambling industry profits come from people who have gambling problems. So, like in the UK, BBC Panorama did a good report on online gambling last year, and they reckoned that something like 78% of online gambling profits in the UK come from 4% of their customers, right? Oh. So most of the people in that 4% will be either have severe gambling problems or will be on their way to developing severe gambling problems. So the industry does kind of rely very heavily on taking money from people who are unwell, who are vulnerable, who are addicted to gambling, and we need the government to come in and intervene.